My name is GertBerliner. I'm a Jew. And I left Germany in 1939 for obvious reasons. I was lucky. And there were many others who were not as lucky as I was. I was born in Berlin. I think Kufsteiner Straße. My parents were very assimilated German Jews, non-religious. After 1933, we had to move out of there, and we moved to Winterfeldstraße. And I went first to a public school. I remember it was on Pallasstraße. I remember one incident, a sort of important incident. The two classes were put together at one point, and the teacher in the other class was a rabid anti-Semite, an awful woman, and there were two Jewish boys in her class, and I was the other one. And she started to be truly mean to those little boys. We were young then. And after she did this, she called on me to come to the front. And she started out, "You Jews, it's all your fault." And so finally I couldn't stand it any longer, and I said, "I'm proud of being a Jew," and I ran out of the class. I went home, and I told my parents. As a child, your response is very different than a grown-up's. You're not aware of the danger. You know, for example, I'll give you an example. My father somehow got a job at a apotheke, and two SR men came in their brown uniforms with a pot of paint and told him, "You go outside and write down Jude." There's nothing he could do, you know. He did. Then he came home and he told this story. And I didn't understand that. You know, I said, how could you do this? You know, why did you do it? I didn't understand that if he would have refused, I don't know what they would have done to him. But I was a child. And then I remember one incident which was very important, and I never forgot. There was a football game at the Olympia Stadium, and my father took me there. And before the game, they play the Deutschland, Deutschland, and the Horst Wessel Lied. And everybody gets up, and everybody does this. And there I was. There were, I don't know, 20,000 people doing this. And there was my father and I. We stood up, but we didn't do that. And I could see that, you know, all those 20,000 people do this, and I don't. That's a pretty emotional thing. That is unforgettable. Then there were new insane Gesetze. You know, Jewish kids couldn't go to German schools any longer, so I went to a Jewish school. They called Joseph Lehmann Schule. It was not very serious, because what happened was that there was a lot of immigration. You know, people came, stayed for a little while, and then somehow found a way to get out of Germany and left. That was true for the teachers too. So it was an easy atmosphere. It was not, you didn't learn anything there. I mean, but it was a place to be. And I was very fortunate. One of the teachers, actually he was the director of the school later on, somehow I think believed that I was worthwhile saving. He had connections with Sweden, And because of him, I got out. It was very difficult to get out. You know, you needed connections and visas. America, they closed the border. The State Department in Washington was very anti-Semitic. They didn't want any more Jews. My parents, they couldn't get out somehow. I mean, you know, they were really, they said, we have been living here forever. Our family was born, my grandfather was born here. It can't happen to us. Well, it did happen. And what happened was that towards the end, my parents were hidden away by German friends, but were betrayed after maybe a year or so. So all of them were taken with, you know, the Gestapo came and took them. Both my parents and those friends. We did correspond for a while. The letters, many letters looked like this, you know, like censored like this. You know, up to a certain point, there were sort of last letters.
Du bist ja schon ein vernünftiger Junge und wirst es deshalb auch verstehen und ertragen. An eine Auswanderung ist also für uns vorerst nicht zu denken. Kopf hoch. Wir werden uns mit Gottes Hilfe noch einmal wiedersehen. In steter Liebe, deine Mutter, die immer nur an dich denkt und dir alles, alles Gute wünscht.
My parents, Auschwitz, 1943, and the woman survived. The man also died in a concentration camp, but she survived, and I did correspond with her after the war. So she told me what happened. They were heroes. Those were people who knew that if they would be caught, so they were, I mean, there were people like that. Sweden was terribly important because I grew up there. You know, I came to Sweden, I was just almost 15 years old, and I stayed there for 8 years. So when I left, I was already 23. You know, those are very important years. You know, you grow up, you become a human being. I lived with a family when I came. After a while, after growing up a little bit and getting a little older, I left. I was not interested in getting rich. I had a different kind of lifestyle, which made it much easier, you know. I don't know, you got a job once in a while, and then you had a little money and you did something else. My formal education is non-existent. But I had a different education, life. I really didn't want to go to America. I wanted to go to Paris. I was a young painter, and probably any young painter wants to go to Paris. But I was stateless, so it was very difficult. It was hard to go anywhere, really. They made it difficult for you. So America was a solution. I had a cousin in America, and all you needed was an affidavit that you wouldn't be a burden to the state, and then you got a visa and you went to America, not as an immigrant, but as a normal person, really. Well, the first thing you did, you go to the right neighborhood, which in New York is the Greenwich Village, was then. Not anymore, but then. There was in the 50s, life was very, very different and very easy. You know, I had an apartment that cost $18 a month. I mean, you walk up, and the bathtub was in the kitchen. It was very primitive, very simple. But it was $18. You made choices. You know, if you're young, you don't care about it. It doesn't matter. And you could go out, have a very nice meal for about $2, $2.50. A pack of cigarettes cost 18 cents. Robert Frank was a friend of mine. One day he called me up and he said, there's a job I don't want to do, you want to do it. And it was to photograph a writer for the Herald Tribune Sunday magazine. And I did. And when the paper came out, the credit went to Robert Frank because they didn't know that, that he did take it. But the editor knew that I took the photograph. And that's really how it started. So that was my first job. Then it was called photojournalism. And I did a lot of work for them and for magazines and papers and books. You know, if you are a painter, photographer, or a writer, or doesn't matter, even a musician, you're influenced by the time that you live in. You see all those people walking against the wall, or other photographs too. It's mostly about lonely people. I mean, I'm not interested in anything else. I'm not a landscape or I don't know, anything else. But people are my interest. Those people walking that serious, I give it a name from a Beatles song. Do you remember the Beatles song called All the Lonely People? Well, I mean, we went to the camps, mostly the extermination camps. There was really nothing there anymore. So the photography is extremely simple because there was nothing there. And no people. Emptiness. Well, what I did was I photographed whatever I could there. And I put it together with a text of poetry and prose, both new and old, and put them together with the photographs. It needed it, that had to be done. That was very important. I mean, it was terrific to have an exhibit here, and to have it in Berlin, yes. There's a certain irony in there, you know, here I am back in Berlin with an exhibit. Yes, that was important. Since the 1940s, there's three generations. It's a different Germany, it's a completely different Germany than the Germany that I knew when I was a child. If your question is if I still can come and hate you, no, I don't.